We just want to thank you so much for being here for this, I believe is the first Midlands Gives virtual training we're offering this year. So this is the storytelling for nonprofits, crafting narratives that drive engagement. And a few things, we do have you on mute during the presentation, just so we limit any interruptions. But we have been told if you do have a question, please go ahead and put that in the chat. I will be monitoring that. Also, I believe they are okay to unmute as we go. Today's session will also be recorded, so we will have that available for you. We'll send that out to everyone who registered, but it will also be available on the Midlands Give site. Let's see. We also have closed captions available for you. So if you do want to take advantage of those, please do so. And is there anything else you'd like to say, Erin, on housekeeping things before I turn that over?
No, I don't think so. I think that it would be worth introducing yourself, Amber.
Yes, sorry. Hi, everyone. New face in the crowd. My name is Amber Westbrook. I am new program officer here at Central Carolina Community Foundation. So very excited to be here with all of you.
Yeah. And so thanks everyone for joining us. We're excited about our Lunch and Learn series that are kicking off today. And we're really excited about having Bill Grant here with us. They have been a partner of Central Carolina Community Foundation, they meaning as told by the group that he's with. And we had the real honor of our staff member heard him speak around really storytelling and how do you craft that message? How do you stay with your brand? How do you really attract folks to you and your organization? Because one of the things that we kind of say to you all, and you hopefully remember this, is that when it comes to giving days, we sort of have this platform, this excitement, and this energy around it, but it's really up to you and your organization and your board to really attract those donors and really motivate them to give and to invest in your organization. And so Bill is here to kind of talk us through that a little bit and sort of his advice on how to do it. And so we're really looking forward to him spending his time with us today. As Amber said, feel free to drop questions in the chat. He'll see them along the way as we go, and we'll try to answer those. We'll also have a little bit of time at the end where we can certainly ask actual questions. So we have 45 or so minutes of actual content followed by questions. So we hope that you're here with us. Feel free to you can certainly show us your video, but if you're sitting there eating lunch, it's okay. We get it. So you can go off camera as well. But we appreciate y'all being here with us, and I'll turn it over to Bill.
Thank you, Erin. I appreciate that. I am excited to talk to this group, especially because what y'all do is exactly what we always want to talk about. Can everybody see the screen okay?
Yes.
All right, awesome. I've got my share sound turned on. All right, good. So thank you, Erin. As she said, we've been working with Midlands Gives since probably 2015, I guess, or 16, whenever the first in-person one was at the Firefly Stadium. I don't remember what year that was, but it's been a while. So it is definitely an event that is close to us, and so I appreciate the chance to talk to you. My company's called As Told By. We have a studio here in Columbia, but we also do on-site video production, social media management for people, and we focus on storytelling. So we're going to talk about that today. So let's get into it. Sorry, I'm getting administrative things. There we go. See if that actually works. It's not moving. There we go. Okay, so who am I? So I started my life as a wedding videographer. My wife was a wedding photographer back in the early 2000s. This is me in 2005 at my very first paid wedding. I got $100 for that wedding. I bought that suit from a Liz Claiborne outlet in Myrtle Beach. Wedding videography, we ended up doing until 2022. So I did it for 17 years, and it taught me storytelling. This is a place where people don't want to be on camera. They don't want to give up their story. You have to kind of be very observant and kind of be around and understand the dynamics of things. And that's where I learned a lot of the foundations of my storytelling is doing wedding videography. In 2010, I started telling stories for nonprofits and businesses and recognized right away a lot of the principles that I'm going to show you are not normal in a kind of non-wedding settings. So that's kind of what we're going to get into. So we have a lot of nonprofit clients. We have some very big nonprofit clients. We have some relatively small nonprofit clients. We love working with nonprofits because storytelling is their currency. And so the more that you can talk about as a nonprofit, the more you can talk about your process, the more you can talk about your effect, the more you can talk about your intentions and your people, uh, the more people really understand who you are and kind of get behind you. And so we love nonprofits because of that, and it's a lot of the work we do. So what are we going to do today? So we're going to talk about the power of storytelling, why it's important for everybody to do. Um, why does it work so well for nonprofits? How do we find these stories? How do we understand what is a story and what's not? And what kind of impact can a story make on nonprofits? We're going to talk about building a story. How do you ask the right questions? How do you craft a narrative? How do you find your voice? Understand kind of how your nonprofit or your brand should be talking. What do you listen for to know that you got it? So, what are those ways where you're listening and you go, yep, that's what we were trying to get. Finding the right audience. So audience is crucial to all of this working right. It's so important that you understand that if you're sending your message, which is the right message for you, to the wrong audience, it's just not going to resonate. And if you can figure out how to find the right audience, where are your people? How are they feeling when they find you? Right. So are you talking to future clients? Are you talking to vendors? Are you talking to donors? Are you talking to volunteers? You've got to kind of really understand in your messaging who you're talking to, where they are. Are they not on platforms at all? So are they not on social media? Are they not online? Are these people you're going to have to find in person and really understand once you get that opportunity in person, how do you share your story? So that's what we're going to get through today. So I'm going to start with showing a video that we made for Central Carolina last year. And this will be kind of an illustration of how do we talk about why as much as talking about what. So let's get into that.
It's important to have Black Philanthropy Month because it gives us the opportunity to remember August and know that this is the month to give. August 28th is so monumental in so many different ways historically. We can start with 1833 when the British colonies abolished slavery. We also have in 1963 the March on Washington with Martin Luther King. In 2008 was the day that Barack Obama did his speech for President of the United States.
The significance is our Black-led and Black-benefiting nonprofits are smaller in size compared to our well-known organizations. So this month is really dedicated to giving that special time and attention to the Black-led, Black-benefiting organizations that don't get the recognition or get overseen a lot in our community.
The Central Carolina Community Foundation was a godsend. They gave us the pathway to a multimedia exposure. And we could not have reached near the number of people that we've reached with this small rural community project if it had not been for the foundation.
Philanthropy is not just giving, but it's also doing, being able to serve, being able to give.
It shows love, it shows dedication, and it certainly shows community pride in bringing all of the community members together to endeavor in a project that we can pass on in a better condition to the next generation than which we received it.
So this was cool because I got to learn about Rosenwald schools, which I wasn't super familiar with, and I've heard the term 8 times since then. It's been really interesting how it's just continued to come up, but that gives you kind of an idea of the type of things that we do. So let's get into story as, why is it important? So number one, story is about why and not what. So as we're talking to the gentleman about the Rosenwald schools, it's not about what are they doing specifically to this school, what year the school was built and all of those things. What it is about what is the impact? Why are they doing this? What is important about this? What is important about this this history month that we're getting into and all of that stuff. It's all about why and not what. So people don't connect to statistics. Statistics reinforce the emotional connection. So if I have an emotional connection to something, then statistics will reinforce my emotional connection, but you're not going to necessarily attach to people through telling them how many people you serve, how many people you've helped, how much money you've raised, any of that stuff. It's not quite as important as what is my real impact? And my real impact is preserving this history for future generations, right? It's not that we've saved 18 Rosenwald schools or whatever it is. So it's the idea that it's about why, not what. Story informs the audience about where they fit in the picture. So, you know, as you're telling a story, you want the audience to go, I know where I fit in this. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you money or volunteer or jump in. It's not advertising. This is the most critical piece. I think I should have put this in bold and red. It's not advertising. We're not interrupting someone's day to give them a message that they didn't ask for. Okay. What we're doing is we are responding to a request for information. We are there to provide information once it's sought out. If you get referred to someone, you get referred to someone, and the story is there to kind of reinforce that connection. We're not interrupting somebody's day to give them a message they didn't ask for, and that's what advertising does, right? So the reason why Geico runs all of these different campaigns at the same time is what they're doing is they're trying to interrupt your process, whatever it is that you're doing, so that you pay attention to Geico. They're not even trying to sell you insurance. They're just trying to get your attention. And that's what advertising does. We're not trying to get your attention. What we're trying to do is to make a connection. And so it's not advertising. The difference between a 30-second TV spot and a 3-hour movie is story. And so if you think about any of these most recent movies that were around 3 hours, like Oppenheimer or like Wicked, any of these movies that people just love, right? Love. Even kids with extraordinarily short attention spans love Wicked because they have found a story that the kids identify with. They found the audience and they deliver the right story for the audience. So story is about transformation. Hero of a story is not you. You're not the hero. Nonprofits are never the hero in their own story. They're the guide, right? The hero's in a bad place. We want to take the hero and help the hero be transformed. Every great story is about the transformation of a hero. So a hero is in a time of conflict, maybe a flawed person, but someone that you can, you know, kind of identify with, and they're in a time of conflict, and the story transforms them into a brighter future. As nonprofits, you're the guide. You help the hero find the path to the brighter future. You're not in a place where you are the hero. You're in a place where you are guiding the hero to the brighter future, and that's the person you're talking to. Even if it's a donor, even if it's someone who says, "Hey, I'm looking to donate money to a nonprofit, and I need to feel connection to that nonprofit in order to donate money." You're helping transform them into a place where they've donated and they feel supportive and fulfilled inside that. Without conflict, the story would be less connecting. So we can't just be rah rah, look at how amazing we've always been. It's important that we think about how can we present conflict in such a way that that we can also resolve that conflict within the story. Because that's the story loop, right? The loop is that the conflict opens the loop, and then the resolution closes the loop, and you've got to think about that as you go through this process. So, how do you identify good stories in your organization? How do you find stories to tell? So you can tell stories about the work that you've done. You can tell stories about I was just telling them we started working with Final Victory Animal Rescue. What they do is adopt pets, dogs and cats. So rather than telling the story completely of just the dogs and what kind of shape they're in and that they need rescued, we want to tell stories of families who have adopted dogs and what the result for the family is, right? And so it's kind of full circle. We've got to make sure that we tell stories of inside our organization, but we also have to find, effects. So as we talk about volunteers, as we talk about donors, as we talk about people that are inside the organization, we also want to talk at some level about that as well as the clients. Be intentional about creating a storytelling culture. Storytelling culture is really important so that your people are looking for these stories, you're looking for these stories, and everybody feels entitled and enabled to tell the stories. And just understanding how to draw those out and how to tell them is really important. But connecting from the top down to say, we want everybody to tell the story. We want you, when you're sitting around a dinner party, to tell stories about what we're doing. Creating that culture around storytelling is really important. And United Way of the Midlands does this extremely well. We worked with a bunch of different areas of United Way of the Midlands. Every one of them is connected to the idea that the story has to be told. And so much of what they do is telling that story and connecting those stories to people. You want to make a list of these as they come in. You want to just gather as many as you possibly can. There just aren't too many stories to tell. Nobody's like, oh, there's another whole set of movies coming out this year. It's so exhausting, right? You can tell as many stories as you want. You can have as many TV shows as can fit on the streaming services. It's not, no one's ever going to limit the amount of stories you can tell. They will tell you when you're doing too much advertising, but you can never tell too many stories. And think of team members as well as clients. So, the more you can tell stories about what's happening in your organization, as well as the effect you're having, all of that will be important. Okay. So any questions about this slide? Is everybody with me? Sorry. Everybody good? Okay, cool. All right. Let me know if you're not, because I'll stop this. As I said before, this isn't Shakespeare. I don't have to do it exactly right. So we can just stop and start as we need to. All right. So I'm going to show you another video. This is a video we did for a group called Bright Start, and Bright Start provides early intervention for children with disabilities. So they're a part of a group of companies that is designated by the state of South Carolina to do early intervention, and they're paid by the state. But there are 4 or 5 companies that are sent to anyone who inquires about early intervention, and this is what is sent as a response to that. So this is going to lead us into crafting the story. So I want to kind of use this as an example.
Maddox is the most happy kid you can imagine, always has a smile on his face. He's just the most active, fun-loving kid. We started seeing some developmental challenges for Maddox when he was even as early as 2 months old, and he had not been diagnosed with anything at that time, so we pursued continuing tests. By the time he was 10 months old, he was actually diagnosed with cerebral palsy.
Being my only child, my goal was to focus on him for the first few years and of course give him the best of everything. So getting with an EI, Naasha and the Bright Start team, basically just surrounding ourselves with the support that we need to give him the best opportunities in life.
So since Maddox was diagnosed with having a stroke at birth and cerebral palsy, he's since then been diagnosed with epilepsy and autism. And
Bill, can you turn up the volume?
With, his
Turn up?
And
yes, please.
Bright Start and our early interventionists have been there.
I don't know.
Way. And we've obviously had a lot of changes with his health needs over just his short 3 years of living, but it's never been a question as to whether Bright Start and his early interventionists were going to be there to support our family.
So Maddox is just a ball full of joy. I love working with him. He is so sweet and always has a smile. He is very persistent. I'm enjoying hearing him communicate more. He's able to tell us what he needs and wants and his feelings. It is a beautiful opportunity to be able to come in when a family has needs and be able to be there for them and help them through it, answer some of those questions. And
Did that help?
sometimes they're so
Perfect.
nervous, they don't know what the future looks like for them, and just be able to point them in the right direction.
It can go up a little more. Thank you.
So for the future for him, we do feel very optimistic. I think it's exciting to see him progress as he has, despite the new diagnoses that he's received. but it's never been a dark outlook. We see so much opportunity for him, and we believe he can do anything he puts his mind to.
Cool. Sorry about the sound. The idea, though, hopefully we'll be able to get through is the questions that we ask them to get this story. Okay. So obviously, we have many thousands of dollars of video equipment and a team of professionals to make this look beautiful. It isn't necessary to do it that way. So let's talk about building a narrative and how do we get a narrative that that can be connecting. So how do you craft a story? I start almost every interview with 4 questions. Almost everyone. Sometimes I get dictated questions that I have to ask, but most of the time they're like, how do we do this? And we can help, narrate it. So for this particular situation, we asked, how did we first realize that Maddox was having problems with his development? How did we get here? Why are we here? Why this? How did we get to this place? If I'm interviewing a team member, Nasha, the early interventionist that works for Bright Start, I asked her, why Bright Start? What brought you to this kind of work? And these are the questions that get her answering that in that way. Why here? So with Nasha, I said, why Bright Start? Why do it with this company? Why not other companies? Why not do it for the state? Why not become a nurse or, whatever it is? Why do it this way? How did you choose the path you chose? You identify the place. A lot of times with business owners, I'll say, why Columbia? Why do business in Columbia? Why do business in Greenville? Why do business in Myrtle Beach or Charleston? And that will give us a lot of that stuff that we're really looking for, which is why I decided to do what I'm doing, where I'm doing it. So those 2 questions are really important. Why this and why here? Okay. So the third one is, what do you get out of doing it? So for team members, I always ask, what is in it? What do you get out of doing it? Nasha, why be an early interventionist? What do you get out of being an early interventionist? And that'll give us personal connection. And part of the crafting of stories for this type of thing is making personal connection, is understanding kind of how to make that personal connection, how to understand, where those connections are. But what is the resolution? What is, for the family, for Maddox's family, what's the experience of working with Bright Start been like? And then they'll tell us, like, they've been a lifesaver. They've been the most important thing in the development of our child. Those statements like that, I didn't give them those statements, right? But I just asked them the right question to get the statement out of them because I knew that that's probably what they'd say. And so we did 3 of these case studies like this for Bright Start, and all 3 had a very similar answer. Most of the time, the families are lost. They don't know what to do. That's our point of conflict. They see that there's something wrong, that their child is going through developmental issues, and they see something wrong, and they know they need to do something about it. They just don't know what. And so Bright Start is there as the guide to help the parents, who are the hero here, get through this story. And then we connected it to a brighter future. What does the future look like? Is the 4th question. Where do we go from here? What do you want to really accomplish? What's your goal? So those 4 questions: why this? Why here? What do you get, or what is the effect? And then what does the future look like? I can go into any situation in any of your nonprofits without knowing a thing about what you do and craft a story with those 4 questions, because those 4 questions take us out of how much square footage do I have? How many people do I serve a year? All that stuff that they will find out later that is not going to connect them emotionally. So questions about that? I just dropped a whole lot of information on you. Any questions about any of that? Cool. All right. So,
I have a
Elaine,
question.
yes. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Well, how about if okay, we're an environmental group, Sierra Club,
Sure.
and I hear you, but I thought about watching a series on Netflix called Toxic Town.
Okay.
And even though it was a very, very extreme, depressing place, but it actually did happen in the UK,
Right.
and by these women who rose up about the birth defects in their children. It was the woman who put everything on the line for their babies.
Mm-hmm.
That, and actually, it is based on true fact. And out of this whole uh, series came the first awareness of corporate polluters that can't actually harm a fetus
Mm-hmm.
by airborne. It's the first case that moved the entire world.
Yeah.
So even though it didn't have a great resolution, but it just this was amazingly informative and educational, and anyone could relate to it because these women had their husbands, etc., actually working within this corporation. They put everything, these working class, very poor women put everything on the line. That's what this series is about.
And that's what the journey is, right? Is the women that kind of got it going, and the resolution is the knowledge getting out, right? Not the resolution of the problem of the toxicity necessarily, but the 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 goal for them was to get the message out, right? And
Right.
and it resonated with you, right? So that's kind of the idea is that especially a Netflix series. I mean, good gracious, those are sometimes 8 or 10 episodes that are an hour or
Mhm.
so a piece. I mean, you're not even talking
Right.
about a movie. You're talking about
Right.
8 hours,
Absolutely.
right?
Right.
And nothing draws you through 8 hours like being connected to a character, right? And
Right.
understanding, relating to a character. Um, and with Sierra Club is a great example of how this kind of thing works, right? And we'll talk about audience here in a minute because I think audience is really important. Um, how much detail does your audience want from you? We can talk about brand voice. Um, you know, my audience, the people that we talk to about doing marketing and video work, they don't want a lot of detail from me. They don't want to know about my cameras and my lighting and what kind of mics we have and all that stuff because none of that's super important to them, right? It's
Right.
important to me because I'm a nerd and I love it, but like it's not important to you. If I was a camera store, it'd be really important, but it's not super important. So, but with Sierra Club, I would assume that your audience wants as much detail as they could possibly get, right? And so, it all comes down to the voice. But if you think about it this way, if you always try to think about it this way, using Star Wars, I use Star Wars as the hero's journey because it's my generation, I guess. But Luke is the hero, right? Luke has been presented a really bad hand. His uncle and his aunt got killed. He's got nowhere to live. He finds this old man who becomes the guide, and he comes to learn that his father is the emperor of the galactic empire that's oppressing everyone, and he's got to eventually face him. Right? That's the hero's journey. Eventually, he faces him and defeats him. Um, the idea, no, spoiler alert, but the idea is that almost all stories have that in it. And even if in your example of the toxic town, even if the toxicity isn't removed, the resolution is not necessarily the toxicity. It is the message getting out. It is the women getting their husbands involved in fighting the fight with them. It's probably incorporating people in the UK to be aware and help fight it as well. Understanding that corporate pollution can affect a fetus. All of those things are the resolution. So I think so. Sierra Club is another example of that. You're probably not going to necessarily conquer the things that is your goal to conquer, but your goal is probably more the awareness of it uh, than just about anything. You want people to take steps, you want people to do things, but it's, realistically not going to get everyone to do it, but just understanding that awareness is the resolution. So that's kind of the way I would look at that.
Can I come in with a second question?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I would like to drill down about analyzing your audience, who you're reaching
Yes.
out to. Is that okay?
Yeah, so we'll do that in the next section. If you can wait just a sec, I'll get to the next slide.
Okay.
I'm going to get into that in a lot more detail.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Can do. Okay.
yeah, no worries. So let's talk about brand voice, and you need to know, because to audience, you need to know who you're talking to. Are you talking to donors? Are you talking to clients? Are you talking to volunteers? Are you talking to government officials? Are you talking to clergy? Are you talking to suburban moms, whatever it is? So you just got to kind of understand, in your brand voice, you need to know who you're talking to. In a lot of cases, if you're talking to donors need a lot very different information than obviously clients or volunteers. So you just got to understand in that particular story who you're talking to. Are you lighthearted? Are you serious? Are you formal? If you look at the Central Carolina video that we showed, it has a very different voice than the Bright Start video. Because what we wanted to do with the Central Carolina video is we wanted to come from a historical perspective, from a kind of studious perspective. That's why we had a professor from the university and a guy that's researching the Rosenwald schools on it. With Bright Start, we needed to be familial. We needed to be like, this is my baby and this is what happened. And, the voice is very different. So it's just important to understand kind of the voice of how you want to talk. And then how much detail, just like we said with the Sierra Club. I don't give a lot of detail about what we do because people just glaze over and they don't care. So I don't give a lot of detail. I'll talk your ear off about cameras as long as you want to talk about it, but nobody cares, right? So are we in 4K or 1080 or whatever? Nobody cares. So we've got to understand how much detail the customers are looking for. Okay, so let's try this with me. See if you guys are interested. See if I can tell you a story that's interesting. So how did I get here? Why this? I majored in computer science from the University of South Carolina at Aiken. I started working in computers and I hated working with computers. It was too analytical. There was no creative element to it. I was not analytic in the way that those guys were. I wasn't detail oriented. My wife was a photographer when I met her. And one day she had a bride at a wedding who said, "Hey, do you guys offer video?" And I said, "I don't know." And I went to Best Buy and bought a video camera and followed the bride around all day with the video camera. I dumped 3 mini DV tapes to a big VHS tape and I handed it to them and I got $100. And they loved it. And I couldn't figure out why they loved it. And because I knew I didn't do a good job. I knew there was no audio. I knew there was no tripods or anything. And so I just got fascinated with it. I got obsessed with doing great videos. So I'm not educated in it at all, but what I do now is a just direct path from what I started doing then, which is just trying to figure out, how do I do this as well as I possibly can. Why do I do it in Columbia? Because my family's here, but also because Columbia is a very inexpensive place to run a business, all things considered. I love the small town feel of it. I love the fact that among this group of folks, I'm sure I know somebody, or I know somebody who knows somebody. And we've worked with United Way now for 10 years because we formed a great relationship with them. And that's what Columbia is for us, is a community where everybody kind of can know everybody and we can all be, kind of in a family in a lot of ways. What effect do we have on people? What effect we have on people is we help them tell their story. We help the very unique, interesting things that happens within any group, no matter how dry it is. We make it interesting because it's about people. And you can take any organization, no matter how detailed or surface everything may look. You make it about people and it becomes interesting. And so that's what we do is we make it, videos for companies and nonprofits that are mainly about people. What does the future look like? Honestly, we just want to expand who we're able to help and where we're able to get to, and what that looks like for everybody. So the best thing for me would be to continue to affect people's lives and continue to be able to motivate people to action. So I just did that off the cuff. I said, I'm not gonna pre-answer any of these questions. I just did that off the cuff. So if you were interviewing me, that would have been my answer. I wouldn't mind that going into a blog article or putting that on LinkedIn or whatever it happens to be, because, that's sort of tells the story of what I'm here for. So any questions about building the narrative? So that's kind of the way we do this almost every time. So when we work with the University of South Carolina, almost always they give us the questions that they want asked, and we don't get to do that. But almost everybody else, we will start with these 4 questions, and kind of we go through the process through that. Cool. I'm going to move on. All right. Anybody have any questions? Just pipe up.
I was gonna say, I don't know if this connects, Bill, but we did get a question regarding the focus of the elevator speech.
Yes.
That is tactical for fundraising, but
Yep.
figured maybe it could connect back to the building that narrative.
Yeah. Listen, elevator speech is great for networking, right? But I find that once the elevator speech becomes ubiquitous, in other words, I meet Amber at a networking I say, hey, Amber, what do you do? And you give me the 30-second networking speech. It's going to sound kind of too prepared. I think you just got to be yourself in person. And once people connect with people, I've had so many meetings off of networking that are just people connect with people. They get into my studio, we sit down and talk, and they go, oh, this is what you do, right? And so they're not listening to you anyway at a networking thing usually. So it's kind of, I think it's good to have it. I think it's good for your head to have your mission statement written down. We have a rule in interviews, no mission statements. And so, like, if I have a nonprofit that sits down and you want to tell me your mission statement, well, let's do it. I'm probably not going to use that because it's just not. If everybody has the same one, it's good for everybody to be on the same page. It's good for everybody to understand the voice, what you do, all of that kind of stuff. But the prepared statement is difficult. Does that help? Did I answer the question? I hope.
Yeah, I believe so. I think Nettie will respond.
Good.
But we did get another question about
Yeah.
when do we actually use the story?
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk about that in just a minute.
Okay.
So we'll get to that. Thank you. These good questions, because they're making sure that I know that I'm going in the right spot. So here are some pro tips as you're going through this. Follow where the story takes you. Even if you think you understand it going in, if it turns out to be something else, follow it where it goes. I can't tell you how many times we come in prepared to do one thing and realize that what we really need to be talking about is something else, and we'll find that and follow it. Find ways to make people comfortable as you're talking to them. It's important that everyone on this call understand that I've probably done 1,500 interviews in my life. I've been at this 20 years. I've met 4 people who told me they love doing interviewing and that they're good at it. And almost all of them are on television. No one's comfortable. No one likes it. You've got to think about, understand their position, their condition when they get to you. Having a conversation before the conversation is really important. If you make that connection and you're just having a conversation, if you're doing it on video, if you're doing it in audio, if you're writing it down, whatever it is, making sure that you can make them feel comfortable enough to speak their mind. And then also, that culture of storytelling comes down to, are people comfortable talking about what they're doing without having prepared speech? And all of that comes down to just having the culture. Conversation before the conversation. People are more comfortable in their own words than the party line, right? So you just want to make sure that that people understand what it is enough that they can talk about it fluidly and comfortably. Allow the people to tell the story in whatever is the best way for them. So if they write better, if we do better with video, if we do better with audio, if we do better with photos, whatever it happens to be, allow people to tell the story and whatever works best for them. Like I said, there are never too many stories. You can't do too many stories. You can do one a day. People would eat them up. That's what TikTok is. It's a story every day. So this leads us to a next section. Audience first, then story, then platform. We'll talk about platform last. But focus on who you're talking to. Then you develop your message for who you're talking to. Then you find the platform that that person is on. So everything has to do with who you're talking to. I use the Wicked example a lot, right? Because I am not the target audience for Wicked. Now, granted, I grew up doing theater. I'm a big theater nerd, starred in plays, whatever. I am not the target for Wicked. But my neighbor, his 10-year-old daughter, is exactly the target for Wicked. So we watched Wicked at his house because he paid the $20 to rent it, which I definitely didn't do. But his daughter was singing every word of all the songs and speaking every word of all the dialogue for all the characters. And we had to just say, please stop doing that. Because she is the ideal audience for Wicked, and I'm not. So I didn't even finish it. I was like, I got to go home. It's like 3 hours long. I was like, I got to go home. But it wasn't for me, right? It wasn't targeted towards me. It was targeted towards the 10-year-old girl. And it hit her absolutely where they wanted it to hit her. And it became a cultural sensation because of that. Because they really understood the audience. So let's talk about audience. So you need to have a very clear idea of who you're talking to. You have to picture them when you're creating messaging. What's their family life like? What kind of jobs do they have? Do they have hobbies? Do they go to church? Give them a name. Ours is Travis. I'll introduce you to Travis here in a minute. But you have to really have a very clear understanding of who you're talking to. You have to have a clear understanding of who you're okay with ignoring you, because a lot of people are going to ignore you, and that's okay. If you get people's attention enough that they complain about something, then that's great. Engage with them, right? They may not be your target, but the ones that you don't want to worry about are the ones that are going to ignore you. So you have to think about all of those things down to the nth degree. We go down to what car do they probably drive. We go down to, what are their kids like, all of that stuff. And it's really important that you have a clear understanding. The other thing is that psychographics are more important than demographics. So as you figure out how are they feeling when they find you, if you look at the Bright Start example, this is a family who's figured out that their child has developmental delays. They need an early interventionist, and they're probably scared to death. And so a 2.5-minute video is not too long for them to watch to get information about what happened to another family. That has nothing to do with demographics. So that could be a 50-year-old couple or a 65-year-old couple with a grandchild. I mean, it could be any demographic. You just got to understand how they're feeling when they find you, because how they're feeling is so much more important than their demographics or education level or, income or any of that stuff. So where are they? So this is important. Think in person as well as online, but where do they go? So the cliche is that I'm 51 years old, so I'm on Facebook, right? It's true. I am on Facebook, but I'm also on TikTok a lot. So we'll talk about all that in a minute here. I'm also on YouTube a lot. I'm online a lot. Sorry, but that's also in the demographic. But where am I? So if you're talking to 51-year-old, business owner, lives in the suburbs, married, 2 kids, one's almost grown, one's in high school. Like that's you can assume I'm probably on Facebook. I'm a business owner, so I'm on LinkedIn. You know, that kind of thing. You just got to understand, where are they? Am I going to networking events? Am I going to the chamber? Am I going to BNI? Am I going to 1 Million Cups tomorrow morning? You know, where am I in person? If you invite me to come to an open house at your nonprofit, am I going to come? Do I know somebody who will, you know, what is my referral like? Um, think of online platforms like old media advertising. Instagram has become television. Facebook has become the yellow pages. Twitter has become the radio. You know, so you just got to kind of think about those things as old media advertising. And what is the new media? So new media is probably TikTok right now, but it's not going to be for long. And so, you know, you got to kind of think of those things as, where are your people going, and where are you going to resonate with them in the right way. So let's talk about our buyer persona. This is Travis. Travis doesn't have a face. It's unfortunate. So Travis is a business owner or a CEO of a business. He's 35 to 55. He's Christian. His faith is very important to him. He has 2 older kids, so probably one in high school, one in college. He drives a truck or a larger SUV, almost to a T, probably a Silverado. Very few of them drive F-150s. He knows that social media is important, but he hates it. He hates what it's done to his kids. He is not on it all the time. He knows it's important, but he's not using it. So that gives us a little bit of a psychographic of Travis. So what Travis wants is, he wants not to have to deal with it. So if we're helping Travis with social media, we don't want to involve Travis with a whole bunch of content creation or, you know, other stuff. We got to figure out, how do we do this without Travis being involved in it? Does all that make sense? Not to say Christian is the right way and other things are the wrong way. It's just that in our target, Travis is Christian. So that means that we're going to probably find Travis at church. We're probably going to find Travis at things that have to do with that. It doesn't mean that this is our only one. So we have several of them, but this is just an example of how far we go with buyer personas.
And Travis is well dressed.
Travis is well dressed. I like the turtleneck. That's a look I'd like to come back. I also figured out last week that I want to be the suit and baseball cap guy. I haven't figured out how to do that. I don't know which baseball cap, because like I don't want it to be an MLB cap. Anyway, ADHD is real. Any questions about audience? Any questions about understanding from this perspective, having a very clear idea of who you're talking to, having a clear idea of who's resonating with you? There are all kinds of ways to find this out. Make a list of your last 10 interactions. Who are those people? You know, rank them A, B, C, D, whatever. The A's are who you want to talk to, right? So, you know, it's just a way of just figuring out sort of, how does Travis become the target of our conversation? Now, is Travis in this group? No, but we have another persona for nonprofits. We work a lot with communications directors and marketing directors for nonprofits. And so we have another target for our nonprofit directors. I felt like that was a little too close to home here, so I did bring it into this. I was like, Travis is not is a good goal. So that's audience. Let's talk about platforms. So Instagram wants pretty things, cute things, visual. You're not going to be able to get in depth with storytelling on Instagram. Instagram is very surface. Quick videos, short things, snippets, little pieces of helpful information. Instagram wants you to follow the new features as they put, you know, the thoughts option on, you know, that's your new feature on Instagram. It wants you to use that. Instagram is mostly relationship based. So it's mostly about relationships, about followers. And so they have followed TikTok into this whole idea of, you're going to see reels from people that you're not connected to, but in most cases, Instagram is still follower based. So TikTok, can everyone, well, anyone that's, well, I guess just Alicia, because she's the only one I can see. Are you on TikTok, Alicia? Is your nonprofit on TikTok?
No, but I'm strongly considering it.
Okay, so that's mostly the case. Most of them are not. But TikTok is, regardless, if you don't have it downloaded, you're out of luck at this point, but that will get resolved, I assume. TikTok is sort of the Wild West still, but TikTok is about entertainment or education. So you have to entertain people or you have to educate them. If you are educating them, you have to have some kind of consistency or authority in that. Understanding the funnel, understanding whether your content is for attention, is it for developing relationship, or is it for call to action? Understanding kind of how to lead that through it. TikTok is a place that is interest based, so it's not as much about your followers as it is about can you make something that's interesting to people. And so you have to figure out how that works. It's worth a try because it's still free at this point, right? Advertising is fine, but it doesn't do much for your actual function on TikTok. It is not for kids dancing anymore. So the 50 to 64 demographic, the one I'm in, is the fastest growing demographic on TikTok. All of my neighbors, mid 30s to early 50s, are sharing TikToks in our friend group, in our text chain. And so you have to understand that it's a powerful platform for people our age, and we don't have to dance. I have a podcast that we just ramped up in January, and my primary marketing for our podcast is on TikTok.
And that is exactly the group of people I'm trying to reach
right.
to increase my footprint here at Family Promise.
Oh, okay. Yeah. 50 to 64 is, I mean, so, and you think about it, Alicia, if you're on TikTok, you might be one of few that is not 22 and, doing those things, and you're going to stand out, and that's what you want. Right. But it's all interest based. So it's not about your followers. It's about, can you create something that's interesting to people? And you just got to kind of figure that out. So, longer videos on TikTok are gaining popularity. So you can do a 3 or 4 minute video on TikTok now. And it's not a problem. It's still just got to be good.
Got to be good.
It's got to be good. So that's the hard part, is making it good. LinkedIn is all business. So if you think about LinkedIn, LinkedIn is for donors and volunteers. That's a huge pool of donors. So, LinkedIn is what a lot of people are sleeping on. Of the LinkedIn audience, which I think is about 1 billion-ish, less than 1% of people post, which means that posting on LinkedIn is an opportunity. And so text is very valuable on LinkedIn. So you can write a long text article and people will read it. But video is gaining on LinkedIn. And so it's becoming, TikTok has had this effect on every social media platform, on every platform. And LinkedIn is no exception. Individuals drive traffic on LinkedIn more than businesses do. So if you share something on the business, you have to make sure that each of the individuals in your organization also shares it. So talking about platform. So one of the things that we do is we cater the message to the platform. So this is that same Bright Start video for Instagram. So now it's not 2.5 minutes, it's 41 seconds. It's now vertical instead of horizontal. So we're going to see if it has the same effect.
Since Maddox was diagnosed with having a stroke at birth and cerebral palsy, he's since then been diagnosed with epilepsy and autism. Bright Start and our early interventionists have been there the whole way. We've obviously had a lot of changes with his health needs, but it's never been a question as to whether Bright Start and his early interventionists were going to be there to support our family.
It is a beautiful opportunity to be able to come in when a family has needs and be able to be there for them and help them through it, answer some of those questions. And sometimes they're scared, they're nervous, they don't know what the future looks like for them, and just be able to point them in the right direction.
So that's catered to the platform. So that's for Instagram, or if they wanted to go on TikTok, which they're not yet, but you know, this is how we cater to the platform for the audience. Instagram has to be shorter, doesn't have to be, should be shorter, and should be vertical instead of widescreen. That kind of thing. Because you're watching Instagram on the phone, so it's gonna, it's gonna fit better in a vertical frame. So let's keep going with that a little bit. Facebook is not just for old people. The biggest thing I see on Facebook right now is community groups. So, what community groups do is it basically puts a collection of people together, and there are several in Columbia that I'm in that are 35 or 40 or 45,000 people in these groups. And all of the groups get reached with your content. Now you can't go on blatantly, asking for money or advertising stuff. But if you reach out to the, modifiers of this, what is that called? Mods. Anyway, moderators. If you reach out to the, thank you. That's my brain. Moderators, then the moderators will probably let you post about your nonprofit as long as you're telling stories. So you just have to think about that as an option. There are probably four or so for Columbia. There's one for each area. So Irma Chapin has one, Lexington has one, Lake Murray Life has one, Lugoff Elgin has one. So it's, community groups are really important. Like I said, don't promote, add value. Because of the demographics, this is one place where demographics are really important. Donors are on Facebook. They're on Facebook to see their family. They're on Facebook to see their friends, what their friends did last weekend, not give you money, but they're there. So you have to take advantage of the fact that they're there. And if you tell stories that they're interested in, you might be able to get some attention from them. YouTube, Google owns YouTube, so it's very important with search. It's key in search results. It's also a great place to have a portfolio. Things can be found there. And then that's a way for you to share it on email. So if you put a video on YouTube, then you can share it through email.
I actually have a question, Bill, about
Yes.
YouTube. It came up regarding shorts. Is
All right,
it worth
awesome.
the time?
Yes. So here is a term we use a lot. It's called platform exhaustion. And that means that I just can't handle one more daggone platform, right? So now I got to post stuff on LinkedIn and TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and now YouTube Shorts. I'm done, right? However, we have seen that on just as an example, on YouTube, the watch time is extraordinarily extended from Instagram or TikTok because people are on YouTube in order to watch longer videos. So if you have a 45-second video on YouTube Shorts, people are likely to watch half or 3/4 of it, where they may only watch 6 or 7 seconds of it on TikTok. So if I was going any place, if I'm a B2B, which means that I sell, my company sells to other companies or nonprofits or whatever, I'm on LinkedIn first. I'm on YouTube second. I'm on Facebook groups, so on third, TikTok fourth, and if I have a moment in my week, I'll put something on Instagram. So that's the way I look at it. But YouTube Shorts is extremely important. We average on a full podcast, when we do our podcast at our office, we'll do 100 views on a full podcast. We'll do 500 to 5,000 views on a short. So it's an extraordinary tool if you can, find a way to use it. The other thing about YouTube is it's global, right? So that this could be people in Malaysia or in Canada or in, Sudan or in Argentina watching your video, and that doesn't matter to you at all because they're not going to give you anything. So you got to just be aware of that stuff and just understand that, all attention isn't important. It's back to that audience, and where is the audience, right? So a lot of it is experimentation and seeing where you're going to get resonance.
Hey, Bill, we've got
Yes.
a request for your sequence again
Okay,
of
sure.
your preferred platforms.
Yes. Because I'm B2B, in other words, I want to reach other businesses and not consumers. Um, I am LinkedIn first, then YouTube, then Facebook groups, then TikTok, Instagram if I have time. So Facebook groups are important because I have gotten so many, you guys would not believe what you can do in Facebook groups if you haven't tried it. Um, there's a group in Columbia called Living in Columbia SC, and we wanted guests for our podcast that I thought were interesting. And I put out a call. I said, hey, we're looking for guests for our podcast. Um, I had 240 something responses to that post, comments. Now, I don't know if y'all been in the game as long as I have, but there are very few posts I've ever made on Facebook where I've gotten 240 comments. And this is just because of the function of the group. Everybody in the group sees the request, and we filled up our entire, roster of podcast guests with, this one single call on this group for guests for our podcast. So if you're looking for volunteers for an event, if you're looking for, people to sponsor something, whatever it is, I think Facebook groups are just a massively underutilized function of Facebook. So this is a quick ending podcast. Every nonprofit should have a podcast. How do you do that? Great question. Everybody's got a fantastic video camera in their pocket. There are tools out there where you're on one, you can't see my phone. You're on one over here. Somebody's on one at their house. You record both things. You put it out as a podcast. The trick is figuring out how to be interesting. It's hard. But if you're having the same conversation over and over again, maybe not so much, but if you have guests on, if you can, we shoot a podcast in our studio for the NIL group for the university, and there are students interviewing other student athletes, and they can talk about games, and they can talk about plays, and they can talk about all the things that are important to the students. And the students, the football fans, baseball, basketball fans, they eat it up because it's a casual conversation between two football players about the game that just happened. And it's relevant to people. They found a way to make it interesting. So I think everybody should have a podcast. If you don't know how to do it, obviously, little pitch, we'll shoot it for you if you want. But if you don't want us to shoot it for you, you got a phone. Let's figure out how to do it. Figure out what platforms to put on. YouTube Shorts is a perfect platform for podcast content, right? So it's an efficient way of telling stories. If you can record for 30, 45 minutes, an hour, you get 10 pieces of content out of that. I'll give you a pro tip. You ready? Here we go. Use Opus Clip. Opus Clip, this is a 35-minute podcast we did for the Builders Industry Association. And look, there's 12 on the screen here. It picks them for you. It captions them for you. It's AI, but it's not perfect, but it's something. And you look at it, they're all under a minute. They're all vertical. They're all, set up in such a way. But that's why we do podcasts, because I can get this much content out of a 1-hour podcast. And this lady who came in, this is with Cutthroat Marketing. She came in to talk about the Home and Garden Show. She only had to spare an hour. So if you want your executive director to talk about something that's really important to your group, you get them on a podcast for an hour, you can get a month's worth of content out of that. So, pro tip. Put the A off the screen there. Email's not dead if you do it right. Cultivate your audience. Don't buy it. Give them something unique they can't get on social media. Make it regular and consistent, not necessarily often. If you want to do it once a month, just make it regular and consistent. In person, we work with Camp Cole. Camp Cole does almost everything in person. They have a strong social media, but they understand that their fundraising all happens in person. It all happens at events. We made a 7-minute video for Camp Cole several years ago. Hopefully we'll make another one this summer. But like a 7-minute video, we show a 7-minute video and that's all they need. And people will open up their giving. In-person is extremely important. Donors will give to you at an event. So there are non-video options. You do case studies in print. You find these case studies and you ask the 4 questions and you write down the answer in that order of the 4 questions. And there's your case study in print. You don't have to give anybody's name or image, right? You want blog articles on your website so that you can improve your SEO, all of that stuff. And then everybody, again, has got a great photo camera in your pocket, right? Just take 1,000 pictures and put a picture up every single time something happens. I've gone over time.
That's okay. This is all good stuff. I was going to say
sorry.
there's a question that came in at the start of the
Okay.
presentation. And so
Yeah.
it's tied to everything you've been talking about. So we have like the camera in our pocket.
Yep.
But this is like any good quality, inexpensive video editing programs or
Yeah.
apps for
Yes.
novices.
So there's several. We use them all the time. One is called CapCut. CapCut, I think, is available to download again, but there is a desktop version of CapCut and a Windows version. CapCut is a strong editing software. Strong. I use Adobe Premiere because I employ a staff of editors that all like Adobe Premiere. Well, we like it, we use it, whatever. But I pay a lot of money for Adobe Premiere every month, so I use it because I pay so much money for it every month. But if not, I could use CapCut to make almost anything that we make. There are some limitations, but not a lot. So Opus Clip is a big one. Let's say you go on somebody's podcast. Yes. Hey, Elaine.
Could you, I was trying to write down the spelling of that.
Yeah.
Editing.
CapCut.
Could you spell it?
CapCut.
All right. That's what I had. Thank you.
Yep. No worries. Opus Clip is a mostly free software. So Opus Clip is, and just do a search for Opus Clip. I'm not sure what the website is, but if you do a search for it, it'll come up. You basically take a YouTube video, you drop it into Opus Clip. It'll do exactly what I showed here. It will separate these into clips for you. It will caption them for you. It will separate the titles and the subjects. And you can, if you're on someone else's podcast and they send you the episode, this is what you do with it. And then that gives you your content that you can share on your platforms. So you're not relying on them. Yes. Other questions?
Yes, we do have a few more in this chat. So when we did discuss the sequences, we had something specific about those platforms. So what if you need to reach consumers and businesses? What do you suggest?
So what I'm assuming, if you're wanting to reach consumers and businesses, is you want to reach them with different messages. So I imagine that a consumer would need a different message than a business. Is that... I don't know whoever asked that. If you can,
I think she specifically added some more, so
okay,
I'm down to it. So
awesome,
thank you, Mary Louise. Specifically, how does the narrative drive engagement across diverse audiences?
Yeah. So as you're thinking about a diverse audience, it's important that you subdivide that audience. For instance, as we're talking about our buyer personas. Travis is our buyer persona for companies, right? So we're going to try to get companies that make stuff. And Travis is our buyer persona for that. Stacy is our buyer persona for nonprofits because she's a communications director, marketing director. And Stacy is in her early 30s. Stacy is married with 2 or 3 younger kids. She drives a sensible foreign car, probably a Lexus, but nothing as crazy as like a Mercedes E-Class or anything like that. She does go to church. It's important that her marriage and her kids are the number 1 and 2 in her life, and then her nonprofit is number 3. Stacy is overwhelmed by the amount of stuff she's got to do because she's probably doing most of it on her own, but she doesn't want anybody to know she's overwhelmed. So she wants us to to be her champion without being their champion. So she needs to be their champion. We need to be her champion. So she brings us in, and then she looks like a shining star because she brought us in. So those are two pretty diverse audiences between Stacy and Travis. We know when we're talking to Travis what we're talking about, who we're talking to, and all of that stuff. We know with Stacy who we're talking about, who we're talking to. And if you think about the vast number of messages you have to put out in a week, so Final Victory is another example. I'll use them. They're going to be over the next 3 or 4 months raising money for a new building. That's not the same message that you're going to send out to people to adopt dogs, because they have enough dog adoptions going on a daily basis. The third audience for them is that they need college students to come and volunteer so they can walk the dogs, take the dogs out for a day, right? So we have to talk to the college students, which is a very different audience than the donors, right? Which is also a different audience than the adoption. And the adoptions come from families in most cases. And a lot of their adoptions come from the Northeast, because there are more dogs for adoption in the South than there are in the Northeast, which is something I found out from working with them. So I hope that helps. I don't think there's a way that you can send one message to multiple audiences. In my opinion, it's not the best use of that messaging, because you just got to send so much out. Now, Donald Miller, if anybody's familiar with Donald Miller wrote a book called Building a Story Brand, which is a Bible around our office. And in Building a Story Brand, Donald Miller says every time you give people information, you're handing them an 8-pound bowling ball. And you just have to realize that the more 8-pound bowling balls you hand people, the more they're going to drop. And so you have to be very careful about sending messages out that you're assuming are actually getting to multiple audiences at the same time. So I hope that answers that question. Honestly, it's so critical that you know who you're talking to. There are residual audiences that'll happen accidentally based on proximity to these other audiences, but designing a message for everyone is difficult to the point of being not worth your time.
We have another question. We've got a
All right.
few coming
All right,
in.
go.
This is a
Yep.
recommendation, Vimeo. It's kind of
Okay.
rather than YouTube. What's your take?
So Vimeo and YouTube serve two different purposes. So we use Vimeo as well. Vimeo is a great review platform for clients because the link stays the same. So if I just got a approval from the University of South Carolina, we had to go through 5 different departments to get it approved. And so one link through the 5 departments is great, because if I have to change that link, I've got to resend it to the different departments. Vimeo allows you to do things like showcases, where you can put, 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 things into a showcase and lock that showcase. So it's two different things. We use YouTube for portfolio. If I wanted to put a video that I want to share up, I will almost always share a video with the public through YouTube, because that feeds the Google search results. If I'm sharing videos with clients, I'm sharing videos with contractors, or whatever else, I'm sharing them through Vimeo. And then Vimeo is also a great place to catalog work. So if I talk about starting doing wedding videography in 2005, I started using Vimeo in like 2009. So that means that I've got 18 years of weddings stored on Vimeo. So if anybody emails me out of the blue and says, "Hey, I lost my DVD from 2011," I can just look up their wedding and send it to them. So, there are advantages to both. Now we've got an impossibly difficult membership on Vimeo for the wedding brand that I no longer have, and for As Told By, at I think $600 or $700 a year, which is ridiculous. And obviously nobody needs to do that. but I think Vimeo is a great way to share stuff, and I think it's a great way to proof stuff for clients and stuff like that. But I think anything public facing, we use YouTube for. I hope that answered that question.
I think you did great. And please add in the chat if you have any follow-up there.
Okay.
Another great question. Just wanted to talk about certain time of day that you would suggest to post.
Okay, so there's all kinds of science behind this, right? All of the platforms, as you're posting for a little while, are going to give you your heat map as to when people are watching, and that's when you post. It doesn't really matter. Now, I have, as you can imagine, a busy day a lot, so I'll post when I have time. So if that's 7 o'clock in the morning, if that's 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, I don't know. I just post when I have time. It has to do with the fact that things aren't shown sequentially the way that they used to be. So I get TikToks from people that are in Colombia wishing me happy Halloween or, happy, happy Thanksgiving or what, like it's March. Like I shouldn't be getting something from Halloween, right? But because it's not sequential anymore, it's just feeding me something that the robots in space think I should watch, then I'm just going to get it when it comes up. And so um, my suggestion is most people's problem in social media is that they don't post enough and not that they're not posting at the wrong time or that they're posting at the wrong time. So I would say in lieu of anything that keeps you from posting uh, as often as you possibly can, I wouldn't worry about it. And that's down to quality. That's down to what you look like and sound like. That's down to whatever like the frequency and regularity and all of these things that we talk about is the top 30% of the equation, right? The bottom 70% is do it at all, right? So that's my big suggestion is I say, look, unless you're really refining your methodology and you've got a good clip going and you really understand what you're doing, then you worry about when you're posting. You worry about what your thumbnail looks like. You worry about your caption. You worry about all that stuff. Until you're posting on a regular basis, and that's whatever it is a week, maybe you're Gary Vaynerchuk and you're posting 3 times a day, 7 days a week, but probably not. So if you're posting 3 to 5 times a week on a regular basis, then you figure out the fine tuning of it. But most of the problem people have is not doing it.
Consistency, right?
Yeah, just doing it.
We have another question. So what is the platform sequence when the target audience is consumers?
So, and I don't know how much we can follow up if we define consumers. So for instance, if I'm trying to reach, this is really important, right? Consumers are all kinds of stuff, right? All of us are consumers, right? When we talk about reaching businesses, I've got to reach the people who are in charge of marketing the business, right? So consumers mean individuals. So, so if you're looking for volunteers for a 5K, let's just say that's a specific use case, right? So we work with a group called Pathways to Healing. They're going to have their Walk a Mile in Her Shoes thing or in their shoes coming up here in April. If we want volunteers for that, we understand what the volunteers need to hear to be able to volunteer, and we understand where they are. So if we're looking for volunteers that are, let's say, families that we want to volunteer together, mom and dad and the kids all come down and attend this together, then maybe that's on Facebook. If I'm looking for 28-year-old, oh, well, hi there. Amber started screen sharing. Okay, cool. Just changed my view there. So if we're looking for 28-year-old college students to bring their sorority down and volunteer, then we're looking for more on Instagram. So that's the way I would look at it. Is I just it's important to me that we keep the audience as sort of the focus and not generalize things like that, just to say if this is consumer or this is business. Certainly business is an easy thing to say LinkedIn, but businesses are run by people. So you just got to understand how to define those people and how to find them. Hopefully that's a adequate answer. But honestly, most of the audience definition is so general that it does make it difficult to know who how to reach people, what platform, right? There are so many times where I see people do things like they put QR codes on Instagram, which doesn't make a lot of sense because then what are you scanning that QR code with? Is it the phone that you're on Instagram with? So, it's like this is a strategy that you've got to kind of think about. How are you going to move people to action? And that comes down to really closely defining who you're talking to. So hope that helps. um, and granted, I understand that the 5 or 6 or 7 platforms, if I'm not including Blue Sky or Threads, that this is a daunting task for just about anybody. And what I would suggest is always to find one platform where you resonate, where things really work, and just double down on that platform and understand what the most important thing for you to get out of it is. Um, you know, yeah, platform schedulers is great. I mean, something like Later, which is what we use. This is great for doing that kind of thing. Really, it's just down to like once you're perfecting it, once you're down to the point where you're posting regularly and you've got that schedule figured out, then getting those last few percentage points out of it is refining it to that point. And most people just aren't to the point where they're posting enough that it makes a difference. That's all social media stuff, obviously. So, events are extremely important. Networking events are extremely important. If I run into you in a network event and I tell you all about me and what I'm doing and how great I am, that's not as important as if I tell you what the effect of my work is. I just worked with this guy yesterday. It was really awesome. And this thing happened and this was the result. All of that can happen in a networking event, Right. And the thing is, like, as an example, a link in a Instagram post is not going to go anywhere. You can't click on the link in an Instagram post. So no one's going to highlight that link and then paste it into a browser. So you just have to understand that that's a waste of your energy to do that, right? Or if you're porting a post from one platform to the other, like Instagram to Facebook or vice versa, you just got to understand the different ways that those things happen in between, um, and not do something silly like that.
Well, I found one more question, I guess,
Awesome.
before we conclude, if
Yes.
that's okay.
Yeah.
So Kathy Morrison asks, are programs like Hootsuite good to use for scheduling posts to optimize time?
Yeah. So Hootsuite, we have used Later. I'm not sure we're still using it, but we have used Later. There are all kinds of things like that. It can be, the challenge you have is you've just got to make sure that you're not automating so much that you're losing connection. So that's really it. So like when we use Opus Clips or any of the AI tools that we use, we're not using them to bypass human interaction. We're using them to save time. So if I look at the 35 clips that Opus Clips pulls from a podcast, all it's doing is giving me an idea of what the topics could be. And then I have to go in and still, you know, push it down. So thanks, Alicia. It's good to talk to you. Yeah. Any other questions? So yes, Hootsuite is a good idea. Any of those I think is good. Anything you can do to make it more efficient.
All right. I think that's all the questions that we have in the chat. So thank you so much, Bill. That
Yeah,
was wonderful. I
sure.
hope you can see a lot of these great comments that are coming in too.
Yeah.
All of this information has just been extremely beneficial. And I also just want to take this time to remind all the organizations in this room that we do have a couple more trainings coming up. So we have board engagement that'll be March 18th. That'll start at noon. That one is just virtual. And so we will be met by Mitzi Schaefer. And so it's a really, really good one. You do not want to miss it. So please register again. You'll get that link if you are unable to attend. But then also we have donor retention, so retaining donors past Midlands Gives, and that's going to be March 25th, and that will be noon to 1:30, and that will be by our own Kayla King. So please register, don't miss out. And Erin, is there anything else you'd like to add before we say goodbye?
Nope, that's it. Thank you all for joining us. Hope you're getting ready. You know, Midlands Gives early giving starts on April 1. I can't believe we're already in the middle of March. So we appreciate you all being here and really thinking thoughtfully about how you're going to engage your donors, tell your story, because you're all doing a really incredible work in what we're now calling uncertain times. So thank you so much for all that you're doing, and we hope to see you all again next week for another really good training.
Thank you guys for having me.
And oh yeah, and thank you to Bill. My gosh, absolutely. Thank you to Bill and for our partnership with As Told By. You guys have been great. So thanks.
Yes, absolutely. No problem.
Thank you all. Have a great week.